Friends, if you read the Christmas story through the Gospel of Luke, it talked about how Mary pondered everything that was happening around her. The angels and the star and the shepherds, Jesus' birth, she pondered them all in her heart. This Christmas season, this time in the liturgical calendar, this season that we celebrate today, is a time for pondering, a time to be in awe of how God is in us and around us and brings salvation to us all. One of the things that always, without a doubt, without a moment of failure, every time I have seen this and has filled me with awe, are fireflies. Fireflies. Let me ask this. Raise your hand if you hate or detest fireflies. Right? I've never met anyone who doesn't like fireflies. Ever since I was 5 years old, I can remember just being in awe. When the sun was setting, it was dark outside, and suddenly you're outside and you're playing, and then a burst of light. And you're like, oh my God, did I really see that? And then another burst of light, and another burst of light. I remember as a kid, and without any shame whatsoever, as an adult, anytime I see fireflies, I giggle. I am filled with joy. They fill me with awe. You see, the beautiful thing about fireflies is that they have a superpower. It's called bioluminescence. And they have this ability to mix chemicals in their bodies to create light. Light where there should not be any light. Light in darkness. The fireflies do the impossible. They're not the only creatures. They're anglerfish deep, deep, deep down in the ocean where the sun doesn't even reach them, that through bioluminescence create light where there should not be light. There are plankton and the different types of species that on very special moments, very special seasons, make the ocean shine like the aurora borealis. In the Caribbean, where I'm from, you see this quite a bit, and it is completely magical. But for me, the favorite has to be fireflies. The most unexpected thing. On the night when you're not expecting anything, suddenly light where there should not be light. I am in complete awe. And fireflies, I promise, the sermon will turn to something else besides fireflies, but I love fireflies so much I could talk forever. But fireflies are these amazing creatures. They don't sting, they don't bite. They actually are called an indicator species. They're a species that only show up when an environment is healthy. If there's too much pollution, if there's pesticides, if there aren't any flowers, any other signs of life, they don't show up. So if you ever get them in your backyard, it's a gift. It means that your backyard is good and wonderful and healthy enough for fireflies to be there. And I promise, totally again, but a plug for fireflies. They are a precious creature. And many scientists say that potentially our generation could be the last who sees fireflies, because there's so many toxins in the environment, pesticides, and then completely, destroying of the environment, that they are having a hard time flourishing in our environment. So let us fight as a church to make sure that we are not the last generation that can enjoy and be in awe of fireflies. That's it, fireflies. They're amazing creatures. I love them. Like I said, this is a season for pondering, for being in awe of everything that God does, and that God does all around us. And to me, fireflies do it. And I reminded of a story about this young woman named Corinne. And Corinne interacted with fireflies in a very different way. You see, Corinne grew up gardening. And she and her dad, that was their special thing that they did together. They grew up gardening. And her dad, ever since she was very little, would plant blueberry bushes and blackberry bushes, raspberry bushes. They would plant flowers all throughout. And her dad would tell her that he was building this garden for her, that this garden is just for her, and that she and her kids can enjoy this garden together. But planting a garden takes time. And so they're doing it now so that future generations of their family can enjoy it. The big thing that she loved was when her and her dad planted an apple tree in the garden. And at first, there were no apples. But over the years, as the tree grew and grew and grew, it started to make apples. And then her and her dad would make apple pie every Christmas with their own apples. And her dad would say, listen, all of these fruits and all of these veggies that we're planting, all of these flowers are just for you, for your kids, and for future generations of the family. Well, when she got married, her dad surprised her. Her dad ended up gifting the house to her and her husband. And he ended up getting an apartment, and he said, I have built this house and this garden just for you. Over the years, they enjoyed the garden together, more and more apple pies, lots of wonderful fruit and veggies. Over time, her dad got sick, and she spent less and less time in her garden, and more time taking care of him. And over time, he ended up getting really sick and passing away. And she could not go into the garden anymore because it reminded her of her dad. And one summer, there was this very, very big storm, and lightning struck the apple tree and essentially split it in half. And she said that was what did it. It broke her heart. That was her dad's tree, and she no longer had it. And she spent all of the fall and all of the winter in a Great Depression. In the spring, she was out on her deck, just kind of feeling sorry and feeling really sad, when out in the distance, she saw dancing lights. And she thought it was so weird, and she thought, what is that? And so she walked out into her garden for the first time in almost, in more than a year. And she went in and followed this light, and there were fireflies dancing all around, or flying all around the broken apple tree. And she, being in the garden, being surrounded by the smells of spring, seeing these fireflies, she said that there was this crack in her heart and a bit of light shone in her heart. That day, that evening, she decided that she was going to come back and try to, take the weeds out and clean up the garden a bit. So the next morning, she got dressed and ready, her hat, her gloves, all her tools, and she went out into the garden. And she felt a little bad about how much weed, how much the garden had kind of gone wild. And she followed the trail all the way to the apple tree. She wanted to start there, and she was going to try to take the kind of dead wood out. And she was speechless, because in the apple tree, in the crack, she saw a new shoot, like a new branch kind of growing out of the tree. What she thought was a dead tree was showing new life. Friends, in this season of Christmas, in this season where we are in awe of everything that God does, we don't do this ignorantly. We don't do this in a way that's like, oh, we ignore bad things. Bad things happen in our lives. There is darkness. There is hardship. There is illness, and there is death. Those are very real things. But the story of Christmas reminds us that death does not have the last word, and darkness did not vanquish the light. As the evangelist John in the gospel says, we receive grace upon grace, reminders of the God that loves us. St. Paul, in today's reading, talks about how we are heirs. We are heirs, and we are no longer strangers or slaves, but we are heirs to God's promise. And now, through Jesus, we call God Abba, Father. And my heart breaks a little bit in that translation because the original Greek that it is written in, it's not just Abba, Father, right? Father seems so impersonal. Father seems like, Darth Vader being like, Luke, I am your father, right? I don't know you, but, I totally birthed you, like that kind of thing, right? That seems like so distant and far away. The original Greek, Abba, right? The original Greek means dad. Dad. And when we call God Dad, Abba, it is a God that knows us and loves us and invites us to know God as well. In this Christmas season, as we, like Mary, ponder these things in our hearts, are in awe of all how God is active in our lives and how God is showing new life even among the dead wood that is present, we celebrate this Christmas season knowing that we have a dad, a mom, a God that loves us unconditionally. And that this Christmas is for each and every one of us. That light shines where light shouldn't be. That darkness could not vanquish the light. That God blesses us with grace upon grace and calls us God's children. Amen.